Greeting everyone, it's Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for everything nerdy and awesome. I am your temporary solo host, Multiverse Bryan. We had a little bit of a mix-up these last couple of weeks, mostly due to technological errors and then scheduling issues following up. But we couldn't leave you guys hanging for too long. I don't like to do that, so here I am, sort of by myself. I've kind of commandeered the studio, and we get to talk about, well, I get to talk about a film that's just passed that we didn't get a chance to talk about as a group, but still in the news today, and that is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So this is going to be a short show because it's just going to be me giving off my feelings and sort of giving off the feelings that I've seen around the the internet. As you can tell, this is completely unscripted. So let us begin, shall we, with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 being the sequel to The Amazing Spider-Man, which came out a couple of years ago. And, well, to give my thoughts a little bit first, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I felt was a little bit of a disappointment. Some of the characterizations were definitely off in that film. Now, you come into Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they're definitely pushing up much bigger. You have way more villains this time, which we'll get to in a bit. You have much more story, and you kind of feel like, spoilers, something bad is going to happen to one of the characters. And if you read comics, you actually knew who this was. So, quick synopsis of the movie. Peter is Spider-Man. He sort of accepted the role of Spider-Man, and you come to saving lives and fighting crime and doing all sorts of vigilante work as he's graduating from high school. All the while, though, he is haunted quite literally by the ghost of Gwen's father, Dennis Leary's character from the first film. Because if you remember, at the end of the first film, he promised to keep her out of danger, and then he immediately broke that promise like 5 minutes later. So, yay, good for him. One of my major problems with the first film. So now that Spider-Man's going off and about, what happens is then that Norman Osborn brings his son Harry back to the city. And Norman Osborn dies. We think, anyway. I mean, it looked like he died. He was all sorts of problems. And Harry takes over the company. And you sort of start seeing Harry find out about a lot of the things this company had done, which were terrible things. Meanwhile, Peter's having issues with Gwen Stacy because he's scared he's going to get her hurt because he broke his promise. She doesn't want to get hurt. They break up for a while and eventually sort of get back together. That's what they do, which is something that I don't think was actually really in the comics either. Truth be told, it's been probably a good decade since I last read a comic with Gwen Stacy in it. That was like the OGs, not like the clones that were running around for a while now. Side note, actually, you know what? Pause that. I'm going to get back to that later. Back to the story at hand. Peter eventually meets back up with Harry. They talk some things out. Harry has the same disease his father had that he died from that's turning him into a goblin. He needs Spider-Man's blood because the more he looked into the research, he wanted to get it. Spider-Man didn't want the blood be given to him. It starts to get really confusing because he was afraid what may happen. It all sort of accumulates towards the end. While this is going on, you have Jamie Foxx's character, Electro, who at the time was working for Oscorp, sort of this nerdy character. A lot of people compared him to the Jim Carrey character from Batman Forever, and he kind of was. I know that's really shocking to say. And so you have him, and he becomes Electro, and you have a sense that he gets upset because he gets saved by Spider-Man once. And he sort of like becomes obsessed with him. And then so obsessed, it becomes a big problem. And so when he becomes Electro and he's sort of stumbling about stumbling about the city, he meets up with Spider-Man again. Spider-Man kind of remembers, doesn't. His feelings sort of get hurt. He gets shot, and now he sort of hates Spider-Man and everything like that. It's a very weird character arc for Electro. A lot of his motivations really don't make a lot of sense. But so eventually, once Harry kind of starts hating Spider-Man as well for not giving him his blood, he breaks out Electro because he gets kicked out of Oscorp thanks to McBad Guy Business, who I really don't remember his name, but he kicks Harry out for some. He's evil. He kicked him out because he was evil. Like, that's the only sort of character mode I can give you. And then, so he hooks up with the Electro. He gets Electro to help him out. He sort of becomes the Green Goblin-esque. It all comes together in a big fight over the power generators of the city, to which, spoiler, yeah, Peter does save the day and then also loses something. I hope that made sense. I really do, because the more I'm trying to think and say about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense in my mind. And that's because, I'm going to move on to the script, that's because the script was very disjointed. There was a lot of things I felt like the script had left over from the first film. One of the subplots that I think he got really, really narrowed down and destroyed was the subplot about Peter's parents and their disappearance, and Peter's father and whatever Peter's father was working on eventually. And you see at the beginning of the film, you see what happened to them. And they're gone, they're dead, they're probably not coming back. I say probably because it's a comic book movie, you never really know. And that just felt weird and out of place. Like, it was like, this is for the first film, but we forgot about it. Here it is in the second film, and we're going to forget about it for a while. And they do. They forget about it for a while, and Peter sort of has to go through his little angsty period because he loses. He breaks up with Gwen Stacy, even though he stalks her every day, and he admits to that. Little creepy. And that plot, even though it was a subplot, obviously there was supposed to be more to it. They just either didn't have time, or they just realized it just was stupid, or whatever. Eventually, Peter finds the hidden subway car with all this scientific equipment that I would love to know how this dude set up, especially because it was in one of the abandoned Roosevelt tunnels, the one that Theodore Roosevelt used to use, and so. And obviously someone had to notice this guy coming in and out of that place. Especially when he had to build a underground hidden car that you have to raise up when you put a token into one of the slots. And because I don't understand, like, giving Peter daddy issues doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Mostly because his dad was never really in the picture ever. Adding this sort of extra layer doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And what's killer is that because of this, Uncle Ben is barely acknowledged in this entire film, at all. And Uncle Ben is supposed to be the father figure. Uncle Ben is the guy that sort of teaches him what is right, what is wrong, what you are supposed to do. And you don't sort of get that. You just get Peter being mad at his father for some reason, for abandonment or whatever, and then just sort of forget that Uncle Ben was the guy who helped, completely raise you. It just seems out of character for Spider-Man. It seems out of character for just a person in general, and that's part of the script. Really, really felt rushed and didn't feel like it was in the same movie. Like Electro's story doesn't feel like it's in the same movie. He sort of exists in this goofy side world that just so happens to parallel universe the rest of the movie. He definitely overacts as the nerdy character, and then he overacts as Electro, but in a different way, because Electro is mad at Spider-Man for betraying him, quote unquote. But the betrayal doesn't make a lot of sense, because the betrayal is, hey, this guy who saves people every day also saved me. I love him to death. He forgot who I was. Any rational person would realize, hey, this superhero guy probably won't remember everyone he saves because he's saving almost everyone. But he's, I guess, so obsessed with it, and that's what they're sort of pushing for. He was so obsessed with it that when this happened, he said, oh, I hate you now, and I'm going to hate you forever, and I'm going to electrify you. Oh, it didn't work. I got captured, but eventually I'll be let out and electrified again. He's very forgettable, and I know what they were trying to do. Electro in the comics, for the most part, he's a criminal. Always been a criminal. That's one of his deals. I'm a bad guy. I know I'm a bad guy. Oh my God, I have lightning powers. I'm going to be even a better criminal. you can say he's one-dimensional, yes, but one-dimensional, but he also kind of recognizes where he was in his life. And he hates Spider-Man because Spider-Man stops whatever crime he's going to do. Here, it's very rehashed. It's very silly. It's very goofy. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. All of his scenes just don't seem to fit with the rest of the film. Especially when he's captured and tortured by a Nazi. For some reason. Like, yeah, he's tortured by a Nazi. Like, literal German dude, full-on accent, very, I'm going to take you. That's not German. Wow, that's not German. Ich bin ein Berlin. No, that's I don't do good with accents, but yeah, the dude was very just out of the way German, named Kafka, I believe, which I found out later because I'm dumb. That was actually a name from a character in the book, a female scientist that actually was Spider-Man's ally until recently. I think she recently died. Don't worry, she'll come back. But so they changed. They gave this character. This character doesn't exist. The German Nazi character, like, didn't exist. So they kind of name tagged him with this other character's name, who was an ally of Spider-Man, because it maybe sounded German, which is horrendously lazy in terms of writing. Like, you could have named that dude, since that dude was going to die anyway, and he does eventually, you could have named that dude Gustav, and we would have believed it, because he was such a cliched character. I thought I got transported back in time to like several years when we didn't care about cliches as much, and I was like, oh, this is fine because he's Germany, he's a bad guy. I was like, Germany, we haven't been enemies with Germany for decades. Why is we suddenly have a Nazi here? It was maddening. Then you have Harry's story. Harry's story actually, to me, made a little bit more sense in terms of motivation. Harry's and his dad never got along. And then at one point in time, Harry comes back from whatever boarding school he's been shipped off to. And Norman's like, hey, I'm sort of dying. He's still kind of a jerk. He's like, you've been nothing but a disappointment to me. But I'm going to give you my company since you're my only living relative. Which kind of I say that makes sense only because Norman must have realized that, like, his chairman, his board guys were just stupid and evil. So he decided, well, since they're stupid and evil, I'm going to give it to my son, and hopefully it means the stupid evil guys won't be in charge anymore. Doesn't work because they out Harry, like, almost instantaneously. Again, for real no apparent reason other than, hey, we're evil guys. And so when Harry comes back and he sort of takes over and he has the same disease as his father, he wants to, not become his father, in terms of both becoming a goblin and dying. So he wants to find the cure for the disease, which, as for some reason, it speeds up rapidly with him. Like I don't know when Norman, I think, doesn't start turning green and goblin-esque till much later when he's closer to death. But for Harry, for some reason, in his 20-somethings, like, it starts happening like almost instantaneously. Like, as soon as he realized what it was like, oh, I have this disease. Crap, it's really spreading now. Movie convenience, if you will. There's a lot of convenient things that happen in the film. So he wants to find these projects that obviously Osborn, what they are building and everything like that. And he sort of stumbles across special projects, the secret projects, which is you sort of find out what they're doing a little bit later on. So he goes, well, Peter worked Harry worked out that Peter knew Spider-Man because of photos, and also that Spider-Man obviously had some of the spider venom that they were testing had bit him or been injected with it something. He doesn't know how, but he knows obviously our experiments led to him. So if I can get his blood, since he obviously survived this and became better, I can figure out a way to cure myself. So again, that sort of seems fine. The logic there sort of makes sense. It goes off the rails when Peter and Spider-Man, when Peter says no because he doesn't know what the damage it can do. It could kill him. Which is, Peter's supposed to be a genius, and Oscorp, and Harry owns Oscorp. they could like, hey, here's the blood. Let's run some tests. Let's make sure it doesn't kill you before we do it. I'll help. I'm really smart. Like, that should have been where it led to, but Peter just straight up refuses. So like, no, because I don't know what's going to do. And he leaves Harry, and Harry gets, uber pissed at him and wants revenge for some reason. Like, I understand getting uber pissed, but then to go out and like, I want to destroy him now because he rejected me. Don't, like, if you destroy him, then you destroy whatever cure you might get. Actually, no, he probably just wanted to take out Spider-Man and then get whatever blood, if he had to draw the blood probably from the ground. So it still sort of works out in the sense, but it just goes there in a very odd way. The only sort of story that seemed to work when it was on screen was the relationship between Peter and Gwen Stacy. I think that's mainly due to Emma Stone, because Emma Stone, I'm not as familiar with her, but she does a really good Gwen Stacy. Like, I have to admit, she does a really good Gwen Stacy here. And you sort of root for her a lot in this film, because she wants to keep moving forward with her life, despite the fact it's a huge tragedy of like losing her father and things like that. But she wants to keep going forward, and she wants to help. She wants to bring Peter along, going like, "Hey, this is if you kind of figure this stuff out, we can all kind of go on." But he's stuck in his angsty period, so she sort of just leaves him because she needs to keep going. So she wants to go to school in England and things like that, and you see why they sort of get along. You see the character, you see the flames, you see the sparks of their love and everything like that. The only problem is that Gwen Stacy's story and Gwen Stacy herself sort of just gets lost in the big shuffle of a lot of this. Now, of course, we're getting major spoiler territory, because I want to talk about Gwen Stacy, more like Gwen Stacy's death. Weirdly enough, I actually talked to one of my GMs at one of the stores that I work in. He didn't know Gwen Stacy dies in the comics because he never read the comics. So he didn't know that was coming, so it was a shock to him. I kind of smiled at that because I like the fact that some people were just learning about her story and sort of how it ended tragically. But in the film where this is a major climactic moment, and it is, like the actual moment that it happens, despite the silliness of the web string becoming a hand reaching out for her, like to see it actually happen on screen, very close to what happened in the comics, where the death of Gwen is Spider-Man's fault, technically, is the tragedy of it all. He went to save her life, but in saving her life, doomed her. It's something that's very hard, it hits real home to all Spider-Man fans and Spider-Man himself. The aftermath is what I feel like ruins it. Gwen Stacy was always, actually, I think, a lot of people call her the original woman in the refrigerator, where her death was there to motivate Spider-Man. Yeah, yes, a little bit. I've heard stories, I don't know if they're true or not, that one of the reasons they had got rid of Gwen or killed her off was that she was boring, a boring character, and also dragging Peter down because I guess he was happy. We can't have happy Spider-Man. We can't have happy superheroes. Remember, this is way back when. This is before what people consider grim and dark now. So this is something that's been ingrained in the industry for a long period of time. But in the film, you see it happen. And obviously, Spider-Man is completely shaken up by this. But it doesn't, the epilogue to the story doesn't feel right. It's literally one of the things they sort of said is that you have to, they don't say it explicitly, but the way it's presented as that you have to forget the people who've died in your life and move on, no matter how much you've loved them, because only then will you be you again. Like it's terrible. It's horrible. It's a terrible message to anyone who's ever lost a loved one in any sort of way. That, so I just got to get rid of all their stuff and then I'm magically better again. No, it doesn't work like that. I'm very sorry, movie. That's terrible. This hurts. this message hurts more than the actual death of Gwen. You know, like, if you get what I'm saying. And I will tell you, one of my biggest disappointments of this film is the fact that you hired Paul Giamatti, one of my favorite actors. You hired Paul Giamatti to be the Rhino, and you do dick with him. Absolute nothing. Other than drive around in another stereotypical accent of Russian, yelling and screaming from the beginning of the film, disappear, and then come back at the end of the film. So he's on screen for like 4 minutes. And I'm like, that's Paul Giamatti, man. Like that, he is an underrated actor. A lot of people really don't know what he can do, because when you let him do what he needs to do, he'll give you a great performance. But you can't give a great performance when your lines are a bunch of Russian yelling and a bunch of Russian yelling. So that really disappointed me. And Garfield, the guy who plays Peter, not for nothing, I know he's a fantastic guy. I've read enough articles to know he's an absolute awesome dude. But his Peter's terrible. Like his Peter in Spider-Man just doesn't seem to click for some unknown reason. I know Cat blames because he has the douchebag hair. He kind of has douchebag hair. I can't defend the hair. I'm very sorry. He does have a big puffy pompadour. I don't look like I actually comb it, but I probably spend hours to make sure it looks like that hair. And his Peter Parker and his Spider-Man seems selfish at times. Very, just not like into where he's supposed to be, except for like one moment. There is actually this great moment in the film that is actually very Spider-Man moment, where he saves a kid from a bunch of bullies. And the kid had a science fair project of a wind turbine and had gotten broken by the bullies. So after he saved him from the bullies, he turned to the project and went, this is a wind turbine. Oh, wow, this is great. You made this? That is awesome. And like he helps fix it, and he helps walk him back home. Like that's it. There you go. You have Peter. That's Spider-Man right there. Like that's what you need. Like that characterization of, I saved this kid from bullying, but not only that, I made this kid feel great about himself and great about what he was doing and just being around an awesome person. Why it doesn't happen anymore in the film, I don't know, other than just script-wise, and there's so much happening at one time. Because, back and forth, it just seems like, oh, he's kind of a jerk, And not a huge jerk, but, he's arrogant as Spider-Man a little bit. When he talks to Mac, he's like, hey, you're my eyes and you're my ears, or you're my guy, and then when he tries to talk again to when he's Max, when he's Electro, he's like, totally, I remember you, dude. Like, it doesn't sound genuine. It doesn't sound genuine at all. It sounds like, oh, he obviously forgot who he was, but he's trying to recover, but it doesn't sound very convincing that he's recovering. He could, and I don't know if that's, again, this is the script or just how he was acting, but that's how I felt. Like, I felt like he was supposed to be making the situation better, but he was making the situation worse by talking like that, at least in my eyes. So, yeah, and so we're talking, this is more in the scripts and a little bit of the characters and how they sort of impressed and didn't impress me. So I'm going through it very quickly, a lot quicker than I would normally do if there was more people I was talking to here. So you have the story is all over the place. It takes a left and kind of gets lost in itself. I like using that as a phrase. You'll see, I've actually said that a lot in my responses to people online, is that the movie starts out well in the opening chase scene, takes left and just gets lost. In the Harry Osborn, I'm not really sure what he was going for on a lot of the actor, and I'm already screwing up his name. I can look it up because I have the internet in front of me. Whoops, I let you behind the scenes. Actually, I can't look it up because my internet is frozen. Never mind. But his response and his things, he had the very, I'm the quiet whisper acting, the very, I'm always going to sort of talk in this slow tone when I'm talking to people. Like, I am sick, but I'm not sick. And Peter, you've got to get Spider-Man. I'm dying. Like, that's sort of what you got with him. And then he might tempo it a bit when he's, "I become evil now. Do you want to go get Spider-Man?" I'm pretty sure that's a terrible, terrible impersonation. And I do apologize for my terrible impersonations, but he felt cold a lot for him. And he also had that weird straight, not bowl cut haircut that bothered me too. Not emo, but just bothered me because it always looked wet. Like it always looked like he just came out of the shower. Man, I'm being nitpicky, am I? I'm sorry about that. I'm being real nitpicky. But the story itself just doesn't work. Like, it just doesn't work. With all these sort of different beats and different conjoined areas, it feels so cut and pasted together. You're not really sure what you're supposed to think about it. Is it a rom comedy? Is it a superhero film? What exactly are we going for? So that sort of takes up the script and how some of the characters were on there. You may ask, well, Bryan, you're very negative about this. Yes, I am. Was there anything you did like? Yes, there was one thing I did like, and this goes into the special effects and things like that, the visual effects, if you will. Spider-Man's costume is probably one of the best Spider-Man costumes I've seen in a long time for the live-action ones. And believe it or not, there's actually been quite several live-action Spider-Mans, ranging from all the way back, I think in the 70s when they had the live-action one, American one. But there's also, if you could find the Japanese Spider-Man, was there as well. And this also goes to the Sam Raimi trilogy. But this suit was miles better than the Amazing Spider-Man 1 suit, which I called the tongue suit. Because if you look at the front of it, it just goes down, has this red sort of strip, and it looks like a tongue in front of his suit. He needed the red belt. This suit had the red belt, had the solid red and blue where it needed the solid red and blue, and it looked great. Like, it looked like something you could actually make, and that would sort of survive and doing things like he would do, his web swinging, his parkour, and things like that. It looked fantastic. And I will tell you right now, like I said, the opening chase sequence, the one where you sort of get reintroduced in the Spider-Man universe, fantastic. Like, every beat that it had was perfect for a Spider-Man chase scene. Him swinging around, grabbing things, grabbing people, going in, grabbing all of I think they were stealing plutonium. Was it plutonium? There was a radioactive substance of some kind. And so he's catching it with all his hands, and he catches the one with his foot, and he's like, I got you all. Then one rolls out, he's like, oh, come on. That was another, like, this feels like Spider-Man. Okay. I'm getting ready, I'm putting myself in my seat, like, all right, I'm enjoying this again. Like, so the action sequences weren't bad when he had them. The only time I would say it got a little bit overwhelming was probably with the finale when he was fighting Electro in the power generator area because of Electro's power and because what they probably wanted to do with Peter Parker and Spider-Man is that you had a lot of CGI. A lot of CGI was being used there because Electro was coming in and out and being electricity and then being solid again. So Peter's swinging back and forth trying to dodge him. So. And he had a lot of slow motion shots that you probably saw in the trailers. But it worked out fairly well in terms of it. There was a lot of close-ups, but not shaky cam. There wasn't a lot of shaky cam, which is really good. There has been a lot of shaky cam and all of us on the shows that shaky cam sort of bothers us. It bothers me especially. Like I said, I got sick at Bourne Supremacy, I believe, when I saw it in the theaters because there was so much shaky cam. I was also in the second row, so that probably didn't help. But so the action itself was pretty solid, not a lot of shaky cam. So they tried to keep it as close as they needed to when it needed to do something. But there is a lot of CGI, and you can kind of tell. But it wasn't so bad that it took away. Like in the first film, there was some CGI shots that just didn't look completed, like at all. The lizard especially, how the lizard looked, he didn't look like he was done. Here, it looks like there was a bit more polish. Everything looks done, but it's definitely very CGI heavy as he's going about through the generators. So, yeah, the action scenes, the visual effects, that seemed to work out, but that wasn't enough to sort of save the film, in my opinion. And I'll get to that a little bit later, because I want to go back to being a little bit on the negative side. Because when we talk about the visual effects, we talked about character. We talked about the script. Now I've got to talk about the soundtrack. On the show, it seems like for some unknown reason, only Gonzo and myself pay attention to the soundtracks. I don't know why that is. It's funny because I love scores and I love soundtracks because they can add a level to a film. Now, not all the time. It can be distracting, but when a soundtrack is done right, be it a contemporary soundtrack, which is just songs in certain places, or be it of a score where you follow the action and the score follows along with it, if done right and sort of incorporated, I really think it levitates the art form to a little bit of a higher level. What about Amazing Spider-Man 2? Not so much. I had the same problem as I had the first one, is that the soundtrack was uneven, much like the story. You had an orchestral sound score for the most part of the film, but it would be doing it would have the big triumphant bum when nothing triumphant was happening. When he is just sort of swinging, you get that. It's like, well, he's just swinging. I mean, I guess it's kind of fun, but is it the victory music fun? Not really. But then you would have also for Electro. I keep coming back to him because he does seem to have a weird problem in this film. Electro has dubstep. I kid you not. In the film, when he becomes Electro and he's in Times Square, dubstep starts to play, but I think it's supposed to be his mind because there's voices in his head, which that's what I'm thinking I'm supposed to be. It's like and it's repeating over and over again before the bass drops, because that's what dubstep does. And it comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't make it doesn't fit. It is really distracting, case in point, I'll tell you where dubstep was not distracting compared to this film. If you go back to Wreck-It Ralph, right? Wreck-It Ralph, great film. They do have a Skrillex song in Wreck-It Ralph. And I guarantee you everyone could guess where it was before I even finished the sentence. But it was in Hero's Duty. The reason there was a Skrillex in Hero's Duty is because Hero's Duty was a first-person shooter arcade style game where it's big and blasty and shooty and rail. It was a rail arcade. That's right. It was a rail shooter. But it fit because he was in that game. Outside of that game, that song never played again, which makes sense. It feels like they were trying. It's like dubstep should only happen when Electro's there. Yeah, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because it's just a character, and plus it never comes back. Like once it happens, it never happens again. Which is again it just feels random. If every time he was on screen there was a little bit of dubstep, I could see it. And a little bit of dubstep. Not the dubstep that actually took over his song. I could see it. Electro, dubstep, techno. Okay. Yeah, alright. I can see that going. But it just happens real randomly. One time. Never happens again. Okay, wait, take that back. Because I do remember he plays Itsy Bitsy Spider at the power generator, which sounds like a dubstep version of Itsy Bitsy Spider. So it does sort of show back up. But again, even that was random. Because I remember sitting in the theater going, was that Itsy Bitsy Spider? Dubstep? Ugh. Shake my head. That was just weird. So, yeah, unfortunately, I wish I could say better things about the soundtrack and the score, but I can't because it didn't fit. It was supposed to be in a different film. And there has been one thing that's always bothered me, and this is the stupidest thing in the world, I'll tell you that right now. This is absolutely dumb. One thing that's always bothered me about all these Spider-Man films, that we're up to 5 now, and not a single one of them uses the Ramones Spider-Man theme cover, which is the best cover of, in my mind, one of the best covers of all time, and one of the best covers to a Spider-Man theme. I know in the Raimi films, one of them had Aerosmith do it, but it's old Aerosmith. We'll play this on the weekend. You guys fix it up for us. Hey, where's my paycheck, Aerosmith? Not classic Aerosmith. With the Ramones, when they did it, they had fun with it. And you can tell they had fun with it because it sounds fantastic. So here we are, 5 films. Not a single one of them wants to use it. I don't know why. It's right there for the taking. Just ask the Ramones. Well, sad face. Ask the Ramone. Because I think there's only one left. Ooh, I feel bad now. So, and now that's me being stupid. So don't worry about that. That's not a real criticism. That's me being stupid. So where does that leave us, huh? Where does this sort of fall in our reviews? How does this stack up? You know, what happened? What went wrong? Why is this version of Spider-Man not clicking like the last versions of Spider-Man, like the Raimi trilogy? And we keep comparing these films to those films because they're actually not that far apart. I say that they're not that far apart, but I do remember this. I think it's the 10th anniversary of Spider-Man 2 to this one, so how that's kind of fun too. But these films came so quick after the last 3 films, and maybe we're just getting tired. Maybe it is fatigue. Maybe they should have let it rest for a little bit, but they can't let it rest. They let it rest, they lose the license. So Sony's sort of in this weird predicament that, you know, we need to keep using these characters if we want to keep them, basically. Otherwise, they go back to Marvel. Which is why this film starts introducing a lot of different concepts. And I say introducing, more like showing off. Like the special projects. Well, obviously, when you walk through the special projects or secret projects area, you see Dr. Octopus, Vulture stuff, the Rhino suit, which comes back in the film, which looked ridiculous. Going back to special effects, that thing looked absolutely ridiculous. Like, I could not take that thing seriously. Like, why is the Rhino suit a transformer? Like, why does Paul Giamatti's head stick out of his chest like that character from Dune? Like, it was like had anti-tank guns or something on it. I'm like, what happened here? Like, this just hurts me. I don't understand this at all. But you see, so obviously, and then the rumors are we're going to make a Secret Six movie. Okay, that's going to happen. Or Secret Six will show up in Amazing Spider-Man 3, or anything like that, And then Venom movie is going to come out eventually. They've said that too. So there is this. We need to get this stuff done. We need to get this stuff made because we want to keep these characters and we don't use them. So Sony's sort of rushing, I guess, to keep a lot of the stuff together. And I think it's starting to really wear down on the franchise, and I think a little bit on the fans. I feel like it's almost unfair to compare the 2 movies because they're actually set with different tones, different characters, and different actors. But at the same time, you can't help but compare them. And the first Spider-Man 2 with Dr. Octopus was just way better. Though I will be in the camp of people saying Spider-Man 3 was not good, and no, it wasn't. I tried to like Spider-Man 3. I tried. I just can't. And that sort of shows that could have been the beginning because the studio really pushed a lot of different things on Sam Raimi, and that's probably what ended up hurting the film. And so now the studio is trying to push more of this on Mark Webb, and Mark Webb is probably just trying his best, and he's just not getting up there. So what is it now? What do we have now? That my overall feelings is that Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a bit of a disappointment for me. In the same sense as so was Amazing Spider-Man 1. If anything, it hasn't gotten worse, but it's at the same level, So they can go up, they can go down. But for me, it's kind of disappointing. Amazing Spider-Man 2, this is still kind of disappointing. But I'm not, upset with it. I'm not angry, if that makes any sort of sense. I know they say I ranted on Man of Steel. I really don't think I ranted that much on Man of Steel. But I don't want to rant anymore on this film that I already have and take up more of your time. But I don't know where else they can go with this character. Outside of obviously doing the Secret Six film. And then once you do the Secret Six film, like who's sort of left. because they're going to introduce, obviously they're going to introduce Vulture, Doc Ock. They have Electro. I'm pretty sure Electro's still around. He's not dead. He's he's electricity. He's comic book dead. He's energy. I'm pretty sure he'll probably come back in some way, shape, or form. If not, they can replace him with some of the other guys who were in the Secret Six. I don't think they'll put Venom in the Secret Six. Venom may be his own character. Possibly also with Carnage. Carnage and Venom may just stick their own films. I don't know that for a fact. That's just me guessing. So, with that said, how would I scale this? On our scale of movies, of see it now, wait for matinee, wait for dollar theater, rental, no, wait for DVD, rental, cable, don't even bother, and then my favorite, the one they named after me, fuck this movie. Well, I know a lot of people are probably going to think I'm going to go with my rating of fuck this movie, but no. That rating's for very special movies like Kick-Ass 2. And possibly some others I haven't seen yet. This is, at its very best, for me, if you're curious enough, it's a rental. At absolute best, it's a rental. I don't want to say go. If you rush to see it, I feel like you're just gonna be disappointed, like I was. But I know some people who may have not seen it yet who are curious. So a rental would not be a bad idea because you may be only spending $5 compared to $7 or $10 at going to the movie itself or whatever. The movie or I just can't full on recommend it. So it's like wait for rental. At very best, wait for rental. At its worst, wait for it to come on TV. And I know it's going to be a while because the first Amazing Spider-Man is not even on TV yet. But it's just sort of a disappointment. And and I think a lot of people I know a lot of people are upset. I saw several videos and articles from people, I think, and who were so like Movie Bob, I'm going to name drop, said he was so upset, like he's glad he didn't have Spider-Man merchandise or he would destroy it. I think that's just taking it too far. As much as it disappointed me, I'm obviously still going to be a Spider-Man fan. You just always wish for your favorite characters, especially in comic books, you always wish for them to be the best, be the absolute best, and because we sort of have our egos attached to a lot of them. So when you see one not do well or you see one fail, I can understand getting upset, but at the same time, I think also as fans we sort of have to kind of inhale, exhale, and just kind of keep moving forward. That's all you can really do, and just as you move forward, you hope for the best, because eventually someone's going to take the character or take the franchise or whatever, and they're going to rework it, they're going to reshape it, and they're going to come out and maybe the best thing ever, or maybe the worst thing ever. You never really know, but that's the great thing I think about superheroes and how they've lasted for so long, is that even through the bad times, there's great times, and great times come again, and bad times will come again. You just sort of have to wait it out. It's what it is. It's sort of become that way. It's a cycle, with everything that's great, there will be something that's equally, shit. It happens. You had the fantastic 90s Spider-Man cartoon, but then it was followed by a really bad Spider-Man Unlimited cartoon. Then you have the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, which was followed by Ultimate. To end on the note is that while you may be disappointed, and I was disappointed, especially in this film, for a fact something good is going to happen eventually. It may take time, but something good will happen. If that's one note you can take away from this. Wow, I've been talking about this by myself for a while. So, I'm going to leave this here. To everyone on Nerd and Third Power, thank you for listening. I want to thank you personally for listening to my rambles. Hope to see you guys soon. Taka, play us out.